What
Yeah,
up?
what's happening?
Chilling. How you doing, my man?
Man, I'm colder than the white man today. How about that?
Uh,
What's good, man?
a
I'm
lot of
good.
cold white men out there this today.
Okay. Everything good? I see you in the C&B house today.
Yeah, like I needed some place where there was a little bit more quiet if I was going to get this done on StreamYard as opposed to in our studio, as folks can't tell. We're not live in our studio this week. We decided to do a little StreamYard thing. And so I decided to come out to the community house to get a little quiet. We'll see how long that lasts.
Hey, man, it's all good in the hood.
But you look good. I mean, I like your background. Your background gets better and better every time I see you, man. You got the swords, the samurai swords. You got the little Renegade culture, boom, emblem in the back.
Hey, man, you know who it's courtesy of. We do what we do. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing but a revolution, my brother.
I got torn up, things blinders behind me, man.
Hey, listen, man. You know, it's they say it's hard out here for a pimp, but it's much rougher on a. We understand.
Watch your mouth, man. Watch your mouth.
Anyway, introduce yourself for the folks. It's for the first timers.
You know, my first timers. This is Kamau Cape Franklin. You know what I'm saying? Resident, sometimes lawyer, community organizer, all around nice person. Then to my left, to your right is
Hey, Kalonji Changa. Some say I'm a riot starter, but I prefer being a gentleman. But when I'm not starting a rebellion, you can catch me on Renegade Culture. Part-time, full-time, how we do it.
You got like 3 shows. You got Renegade Culture, you got the Riot Starter, and we both got the remix, man. You're all over media these days.
Hey, listen, man. I must be losing my mind or something. You know what I'm saying? I feel like a revolutionary Steve Harvey without the loop. Somewhere between Steve Harvey and Deruba. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, that's why I get a little closer to Steve, at least on the money thing. Not on the politics, though. Nothing near the politics.
Nothing near the politics. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, man, it's good to see you. Today being the 36-year commemoration.
That's right.
Of Move.
That's
the Move
right.
bombing. You know what I'm saying? So, of course, we got that nonsense, and we also have the anniversary of the Black Liberation Army's acquittal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, excuse me, not the Black Liberation Army, the Panther 21's acquittal.
Yeah, I was going to say better known as the Panther 21. At the time, the longest trial in New York State history, and all 21 were acquitted of charges like bombing and conspiracy and so forth. And some were even acquitted in absentia because they got bailed out. Speaking of Deruba, and then went overseas. First started raising money, then went overseas. So I did some post today. I was like, this is one of the few times in history where the evidence was so underwhelming in terms of what the state could prove that even like the jury was like look, we're not even, and because the deliberations took one of the shortest time periods, particularly compared to the trial. So they were like, this is complete BS. So we're not even going to convict on this. So
now one of the ill things that we didn't point out on the remix is the fact that Deruba was framed 6 days later.
That's right.
After that acquittal. You know what I mean? He was accused of popping 2 more pigs, and he ended up doing 19 years in prison before it was found out that he was, of course, like we already knew, a victim of COINTELPRO.
Mm-hmm. So once that evidence came out, his attorney that we both know,
no doubt,
Bob Boyle.
Shout out to Bob.
Yep, always shout out to Bob. It's
no doubt,
white man I know.
You got damn right.
So I always joke with Bob. I was like, if I lined up 15 white guys in a row and asked you to say which one is the revolutionary lawyer for Black Liberation Army members, Black Panther Party members, who knows the inside game, Bob might be the last one you pick just because it looks so straight and narrow in his look that you're like, this dude.
Man, look, they might pick Sean King before Bob. But speaking of Move, Pam Africa hit me early today, and there's some. By the time folks check out this episode, there's some new breaking news that's dropping. Tomorrow morning they have a press conference, and I almost feel like talking about it because of the fact that this won't be out till tomorrow night. But I'm gonna hold my tongue just in case it gets leaked out or whatever.
You sure? It was gonna be tomorrow night?
Well, tomorrow night we should be good, right?
Yeah. We should be good.
Well, I'm going to say it. She received a phone call from the mayor of Philly today on the 36-year anniversary or commemoration, stating that they found more bodies.
Oh boy.
More remains, rather. And also that in 2016, 2017, the medical examiner, he actually discovered the remains and burned them, destroyed them.
Not surprising. I mean, this goes back to the state obviously not giving a damn, but just the ruthlessness and the brutality. The fact that they were in the first place, and like you pointed out earlier on the remix, Wilson Good was the mayor, black man, dropped a bomb on a neighborhood that included kids and adults,
animals, the whole nine.
Animals just killed everybody and wiped them out, and suffered no consequences thereof after that.
One correction, of course, there were two folks that came out. One adult, which was our comrade Ramona Africa. Shout out to Ramona, who's still out there in the front line, and also Birdie Africa, who was the child.
Yeah,
I think he was 13 at the time.
Yeah, I think you're right. Who survived?
Yeah.
But it just continues on that path of the city and the state just feeling like they could do whatever they want to do and get away with it, because these folks were radicals. They were left. They were caring about their people, and so it's hopefully something can come out of this in terms of at the very least a lawsuit, but something that puts public pressure on them so that this can't happen again. But I guess that won't happen until we get to what part of what our topic is going to be able to be later on tonight, be about like revolutionary change, because if the state's in charge, you never know what they're going to be able to do.
Hey man, listen man, the state, I think that one of the mistakes that we make as a people is we underestimate the power of the state. We underestimate their ruthlessness. We underestimate their tyranny. We underestimate their propaganda machine. And I was telling folks earlier, man, it's like they thrive off of our egos and ignorance because of the fact that we're so egotistical. And folks talk about unity. The reason why we're not uniting is based off of ego. You understand what I'm saying? Because everybody wants to be the head slave in charge. Everybody wants to be the person to liberate the rest of us. Now, the ill thing about that, I imagine that if you had the key to our liberation, if Bob Boyle had the key to our liberation, folks would turn their back and continue to try to fight rather than saying they were liberated by one of us. You understand what I'm saying? And it's a sad, sick situation.
Yeah. What's the old saying? I want black people to be free, but only if I free them.
Exactly.
Right? That's unfortunately the character of folks who even claim to be doing organizing, who claim to be caring about our folks. What they really want is to be the out front person, the person in charge, or to look like they're the person in charge.
That's right.
And that's what's more important to them. But like we said, we got a big show coming on tonight. We got some special guests and a special topic. Why don't you introduce what the topic is going to be?
Look, man, tonight we're talking about revolutionary tools. We're talking about revolution, period. Last week we had Baba Mukasa Dada, and it was a heavy-duty show, heavy-duty episode. So we wanted to follow it up with some younger organizers, some younger activists, younger freedom fighters, who happen to be in the quote-unquote professional world as well.
Yeah.
But they're serious about our liberation, and we respect them because of the fact that first and foremost, they down with BPM. Duh. They're members of the Black Power Media crew. You can catch them on the morning show, the remix, and they're putting in work, and we admire their humbleness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we have Dr. Iyelli Ichile, and also African Esquire, Tierney Sheree, joining us today. So y'all stay tuned, and we're gonna be right back at you as we bring them on.
Renegade culture.
Renegade.
Hey,
what's happening?
Hi, how you doing?
Good to go.
Good.
Y'all feeling all right? Tierney's looking like
You know,
she's
you're
not
right.
sure she is. You can't hear us?
You got your mute button on, Tierney. You got to take that mute off. It's still on. I can see it over to the side. It's that button right there. That button. You got to press the mute. Oh, she can't hear or talk.
Oh, you can't hear or talk. You have some difficulties over there. Okay. Well, we see you have your mic muted. That's one.
All right.
We're gonna have her log off and
try to come back on us.
No doubt. Well, Iyelli, how you doing, Dr. Iyelli? What's going on?
I'm great. I'm happy to be back.
Hey, man, you know what I'm saying? It's back. You back like you never left.
We might just have a whole segment, or you might just be a whole, like a third host. Because I might retire. You know, it might be a second host. I might retire soon. You know?
No, never. Don't do that. I'll be an honorary member.
Either that, or you could be the new producer, because the ear doctor might retire. Boom, boom, boom. Anyway, shout out to the ear doctor. He's absent tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's somewhere working on some weather, so he'll be back. Catch him on Tuesday doing the remix.
He's preparing the sketches for Tuesday morning. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt, he getting it in. We have Mae the producer on deck tonight, producer of the morning show. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean, making sure that we flow smooth. But Doc to Iyelli, what's the deal? We want to for folks who are not familiar with you, can you do us a quick brief bio, because we don't want to jack it up, because you know Kamau is known for that, so we don't want that to happen tonight.
I think he's been practicing your name too. Let me just let you know that he's been smooth.
Okay, and he's doing much better.
Okay, thank you.
So,
she didn't say I got it right.
I am a mom. I'm a community member, a culture worker. I am a college professor, as you all said. I teach history and Black studies at Prince George's Community College out here in PG County, outside of DC. I'm also the director of the African American Studies Institute there, and I just kind of get in where I fit in, wherever folks call me. I just try to go. That's it. That's me.
That's what's up. So, I mean, part of the topic tonight, we know that one of the things you've been dropping on the remix has been, coming with the whole African spirituality side of things. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Something's necessary. We have Tierney Sheree back. You can hear us now?
Hey.
Okay. She's been healed. So that's cool. So
yes, I have. Thank you.
Word. So, matter of fact, we're gonna have Tierney introduce herself as well, real quick, and then we'll get back to what we was talking about.
Okay, peace, everyone. Tierney Sheree, Pepper, full name. I host African Esquire TV, a Pan-Africanist YouTube channel. I'm also steering committee chair of an organization called We Charge Colonialism. So I'm just happy to be on to talk about revolution.
No doubt. Okay. That's what's up. So see, we like when you all do your own bios. Some of the folks we had on, they do like 8 pages. Like, and when I was in the 3rd grade, you know what I mean? We won't hear none of that. But anyway, one of the things that Iyelli drops on us pretty regularly is African spirituality. One of the things I wanted to start off asking you was how important is spirituality when we talk about revolution in your eyes?
Well, I think really the historical record shows that where we have been engaged in our spirituality deeply, it has meant a more successful outcome. And obviously the Haitian Revolution is an example. But there are many, many other examples. For instance, the whole Maroon idea, the fact that we have marronage. You don't have marronage without communities building themselves around spirituality. Spirituality enables us to see not just the physical, but understand that if our physical bodies don't survive the revolutionary process, we do go on. It helps us to think beyond our generation and prepare for a future that we may not physically be in, but we may be in another form. It allows us to be braver. It allows us to feel less isolated and alone in what we're doing. It guides our sense of ethics, morality. Not that you can't have those things without spirituality, but those are part of the African worldview that we had coming over here. So again, I argue to anyone, we didn't get mind wiped when we got off the slave ships. So what was it that guided our hearts and our minds and our thinking? We organized around the principles we learned through our spiritual culture. And really, if you're talking about African culture, traditional culture, philosophy, right? You cannot divorce that from the spiritual tradition, which is why so many African languages don't have a word for religion. It's not separate from the way of life. So that's why I feel like you can't really talk about revolution and then talk about spirituality separately. Or try to divorce it from the conversation. It's just in there.
Nice. Tierney, I know that you just put together a panel yourself dealing with religion and spirituality. I want to ask you the same question. And in us asking the question, we're not asking, unless you need to divulge that, but, spirituality, how important is spirituality to you in revolution?
I think that everything you really said is absolutely true. And when I look at how our ancestors have been able to survive the horrors of enslavement, I don't think that that's by happenstance. Honestly, I don't think everyone even has that in them. I think that exact spirituality, that connection to our creator, in a sense, that there is something worth struggling for. I think that's absolutely the reason why we're even here today. So as far as the liberation struggle today, I think that we have to make sure that we're having a recognition that there is absolutely a role that going back to our indigenous practices should have. And I think that unfortunately, when we talk about spirituality, people attach things to it that shouldn't be attached to it. And that's what turns some people off. But my belief is that really you could be of any religious system and still practice that. I mean, many of our ancestors subscribe to a different religious system while also subscribing to African spirituality. So I think that we should take the road that they showed us and take that road to liberation.
All right. Okay. Would you like to chime in?
I am I am the resident atheist of the crew. And I probably put spirituality in the same realm of culture, right? And so for me, spirituality mixed with culture, or the idea of culture, is highly important, I think, to successful revolution making. Like when folks are attached to their historical culture, and inclusive of that is the spirituality that they practice, it adds to the ability to sort of draw out the need for us to escape from whoever them is, right? Because usually them are imposing something on us that we did not agree to have it imposed upon. And that comes with changing the way we eat, the way we think, the way we pray, the way we worship, how we live our lives. And it is usually attached to, instead of doing it that way, we want you to do it the European way, because we as Europeans think that we are more successful in everything. And so we're going to come over here and tell you how to do everything that you were doing before, but to do it the way we tell you to do it, right? So, and we're going to extract from your culture, from your spirituality, what we want to extract from it for our benefit, and hand it right back to you in a different form and make you pay for it half the time. So, so I think the mixture of an intact culture, or a culture that sort of drives folks to be like, this is the way forward to get back what we lost, or this is part of the way forward to get back what we lost, is extremely important in terms of the struggle, a revolutionary struggle.
Right. Yeah. So that sounds dope, and I think Kamau think we're doing a panel today. However, you still the co-host, brother.
It was a discussion. I thought we were doing like this back and forth discussion.
Okay.
I was going to ask you. So, what you think about that, son?
Yeah. Well, that's good. My answer to that really is I'm under the belief that religion is what you do. Your religion is what you practice daily. You know what I mean? So whatever title you call yourself, you can say you're a Muslim, you can say you're Christian, you can say you're an Ifa priest, whatever you say you are, that sounds good. But at the end of the day, it's what do you do? You know what I mean? So ultimately, I would say that my religion is revolution, because of the fact that I practice the art of revolution. I'm practicing the liberation of my people. You know what I mean? So I don't get caught up in the in entanglement of what someone else is doing. You know, one of the things Malcolm talked about was going in the closet and putting your religion on the shelf. You know what I mean? I believe I'm a spiritual person by nature. I think that physical, mental, and spiritual are the makeup of humans. You know what I mean? And you know, we all come with lofty titles. You can say you're a doctor, you can say you're a professor, you can say you are a revolutionary, you can say whatever you want to. But at the end of the day, what is it that you do? You know what I'm saying? A crackhead can say he's a philosopher, but if he smokes crack, then you're still a crackhead. You know what I'm saying? So you can call yourself what you want to, but what do you do? You know, so that's kind of how, you know, I look at it. You mentioned culture. I think that when we talk about revolution, I think that oftentimes folks confuse revolution with culture. I don't think that every revolutionary is a righteous man, nor do I think that every revolutionary is into culture. You know what I mean? So I want to know from you all, how important do you think that that culture is in revolution?
I think it's definitely important in different aspects. So you have the aspect of getting people engaged inside of the revolutionary struggle. And I think for most of us, that comes by way of rejecting European norms. And so whenever you're on that road, I think that's one way that people enter into revolution. I also think that a necessary component of decolonization has to be reversing the implantations that European culture has taught us. So there's so many things that I think have become second nature to us, like capitalism, that it's like we just think that's the way of life. Like I've seen this all the time when I say something like, you know, destroy capitalism. They're like, well, what else would there be? So a big aspect of that is going to your indigenous culture to realize that prior to encountering this system, that you had your own culture. You had a culture that I would describe as a socialist culture. And also, I think culture does become important in understanding how to survive. We have to draw from the experiences that people have given us that has allowed us to come this far. I think where things kind of become murky is where culture is particularized in a certain way that you have to prove your Africanness by doing certain things. And no one, in my opinion, will ever measure up whenever we have these type of like arbitrary standards that are not connected to a revolutionary purpose, not connected to the decolonization agenda. So I think we have to absolutely embrace culture. I think culture is revolutionary. I think that there's something about getting in a space with people who have been taught for so long to take on a white identity and saying we reject that. But I think if it becomes a litmus test, for example, like I'll give you one example. So my name's Tierney, Sheree, Pepper. My husband's Ghanaian, so I got an African name, yeah. But I have people that come on my channel and they say, "Wow, you're not gonna get rid of your name, like Tierney, like that's not African," you know. Yeah. And they, to them, it will be someone who maybe they changed it into an African name, but they're not even doing anything in the actual African struggle, and they'll judge me by that and say that I'm less than. That's where it becomes dangerous, and I think that's where it becomes counter-revolutionary. And so, one thing that I think we can learn from our indigenous culture is tolerance, and that's something that our ancestors, I think, embodied.
It's true. I agree wholeheartedly. I think using your name as an example is a really good one. I think at an earlier stage in my revolutionary development, I was born with my name. My name comes from my Nigerian father, right? But or my Becheve father. I choose not to identify by these colonial state names. But anyway, my name I got straightforward day one. But for people who receive their names from their parents, receive their names from their grandparents, these are ancestral names. They're names that were given to you through the same processes as the ancestors before you, as the ancestors in Africa. You're honoring your lineage, your bloodline. So that's very African. So I think culture has to be taken down past the superficial, past the how many dashikis are in your closet, to the operating system. It's an operating system. If it's not an operating system and you're not getting to the ethics, the values, how we relate to each other, how we think about resources, how we define concepts, then you haven't started to be in the culture. And this is something I was thinking about this morning. The folks in a generation ahead of us, they used to call this stuff being in the culture. You know, like about 1968, I got in the culture, right? But now we're talking about for the culture, which is like externalizing it, I think. Like we're speaking out, outside, we're projecting out. We want to look like we're doing something positive instead of actually like digging into the how do we do it? How do we be in it? And I think there's something there that I think is interesting. I think also culture is important, and this I guess takes it back to spirituality again, because I don't see these things as truly divisible. But this is where we find our medicine, right? And that's why I'm always preaching that on the Remix Morning Show. It's like, instead of saying I don't have enough money to practice an African religion because I don't have enough money to buy all the stuff you need, or I don't have enough money to join a church because I can't tithe every Sunday, or you know what I mean? I can't even afford a prayer rug. You know, it's Ramadan. I can't even. What are the basic human things that you can do that you have access to once you understand the operating system? Because our ancient ancestors didn't have access to airplanes and shipping to ship themselves the perfect cola nuts from Nigeria so they can do their thing. They used whatever they had. Spirit is energy. Energy understands, and the universe is an intelligent place. It's an intelligent thing. And so I think getting down to a deep structure of culture really helps us to really understand what this is about. It helps us to get to the therapeutic aspects of our culture, right? It helps us deal with things like mental health. I thought Kamau's piece this morning was really dope. Our relationship to plants and the herbal world that we have access to, right? Those relationships, how we keep ecological balance, ecological harmony, that stuff, environmental justice is built into the culture. These are new problems because we've gotten shifted off of our cultural understandings and our relationships to the world around us. Culture brings us back to those places. So a lot of these problems will solve themselves if we get back to those indigenous understandings. And so that's why culture really matters too. I
was going to jump in quick and say, because some of the things you alluded to, with some of the problems that started to separate organizers or radicals in the 60s and 70s, where you had this narrow nationalism versus this sort of revolutionary nationalism, right? So you had this narrow nationalism of groups like us that really went deep into African culture, had African names or new African names.
When you say us, United Slaves, you're saying, correct?
Yes, when I say us, yeah, United Slaves, yeah, Karanga. So they did all of this stuff, which made them externally feel closer to African culture or parts of African culture, which I do think has importance, right?
Yeah, that's meaningful.
But as opposed to challenging the state, they stopped short thereof and were okay. At least it seemed like they seemed to be okay with just creating little small groups that did that, but never challenged the state on behalf of all of us, right? And so I think the error for me, in terms of when I look back, wasn't necessarily that they started to practice African culture, because I think that's a very important part, or different cultures that they wanted to adopt that came from Africa, right? As folks started to sort of go back and study and try to see what part of the land did we come from, or where we at, and that we should start adopting back as here. And I think that connection has always been great. But it's always been that sort of like, if it's just limited to that, we run into trouble. And so I think the next topic to throw out there around what's needed for revolution comes to the idea of ideology, right? So what is the ideology that drives revolution? What is the ideological practices or the ideological thinkings that we think if we need to put forward in order to make a revolution happen? And Brother Kalonji, since I'm playing both host also and commentator and panelist, I'm gonna start with you, brother, since I didn't, I kind of jumped in here and switched the topic on you.
I'm gonna ask you to repeat that question, because I was still caught on the first half of what you said. So I'm gonna be honest with you. But what was the direct question?
No, the direct question was like, based on not just like we talked about culture, and one of the things that we need to link up with and think about is like, so what is the ideology that drives revolution, right? Because when people adopt a culture only as their stance and they leave out an ideological position that moves us forward as a people, then we're left only with the culture and the idea that we're safe because of the culture, but we don't change the material conditions around us and or struggle around changing the material conditions around us. So my question is, in terms of what we need for a revolution, is what ideology serves us for and or towards a revolution?
That's a heavy question, my brother.
It's a heavy program, my brother.
No doubt. It's renegade culture. Yeah. So I would say, as a comrade and sister stated, we have to be socialists. We have to practice African scientific socialism. We are African people. We're clear about that. But at the same time, I don't think that our alienating anyone is going to help us to be successful in waging revolution, especially here in the United States. They say we're 13-14% of the population. If we're 13-14% of the population and we have all these differences, well, I don't like this one because they practice this, and I don't like that one because they practice that, and I don't like this one because of their gender, and I don't like this one because of their height, and all of that type stuff, then the numbers dwindle. You know what I mean? So I think that you be stern on your position. You accept the concessions, but in regards to your position, then you steadfast. You know what I mean? We are socialist people by nature. You know what I mean? And then when I say socialist, some folks, they get into, well, you talking, Marxism and so on and so forth. All of that sounds good in the grand scheme of things. Right now, as African people, there was a time when we cared about each other. You know what I'm saying? We were concerned and we cared about the universe. We cared about nature. That's one of the things I love about MOVE, is because they're pro-life. They care about nature. They care about the planet. They care about, the environment. All of these things are important because of the fact that it's about life. You know what I mean? In the grand scheme of things, we're here on average less than 100 years, which is a drop in the bucket when it comes to the planet itself. So we're here for a season, for lack of better words. You know what I mean? So my particular position, while I love us, while I'm as pro-African as it gets, at the same time, I'm pro-life. I'm pro-humanity. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to go kill an animal just because of the fact that, I want to see what my gun do. You know what I mean? That don't make you soft. I think that the protectors of the planet are the most important people on the planet, because of the fact that, at times I tell folks, I say, okay, boom, I'm an environmentalist. And they're like, environmentalist? What are you talking about, the environment? What about the Africans over in such and such? Let me tell you something, man. If the environment is jacked up, you ain't got to worry about the Africans over in such and such, because we won't have a damn planet to be on. You know what I mean? We get so caught up in like you all said, the materials, the image. You know what I mean? It sounds good. It looks good. But at the end of the day, it don't mean shit if you're not, you know what I mean? If you're not in line with the universe. So again, to answer your question, I hope I got it. I answered it, boom, African scientific socialism and, to the death.
Yeah. Iyelli, what do you think? Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that the one of the most insidious, trickiest things that colonization has done is to divorce culture from ideology, which is why when I look at culture, my goal is to always reconnect it to an ideological foundation, or the why of it all and how of it all, put back down to operating systems, because and then also think about it in a global way, like, because I think that our oppressors have been so successful at divorcing. Like, I think it's something you referred to earlier, Kamau, like they picked and chose which parts of culture were like safe and okay for the natives to hold on to. You can wear your clothes, you can eat your food and have jollof rice wars if you want. You know what I mean? That's cute. You can sing and dance a little bit. You can have even your names, but you can't have those names that speak to like the war deities you used to fight us back in the day before we burned all your shrines down. You can't have those names anymore. Like, you have to forget all of the ideology that allows you to fight back and adopt the ideology of pacifism. You have to get rid of all the ideology that says that resources should be shared equally in a society, and adopt the idea of like hustle and dollarism and all this other, like, it's just so interesting how they've compartmentalized and discombobulated who we are. And I think that the ideology really is there. We had a scientific socialist understanding of the universe before there was a term that was that, right? So it really does, you can distill it down to a way of life. And I think that some people are really clear on ideology and can articulate it that way. And some people, if you go down, you go to the village, as they say, or even out to the bush, as they say, in the continent, you'll see people who are living it. They're not just talking about it as a scientific socialist concept. They're just living it. It's just the way they do things. It's the way they relate to people, relate to new people who come to visit. So I think that all of those things have to have a place, and all those things have to have value. And I think the goal should be earth-centeredness. The goal should be unity above all else, and trying to find strategic ways to come together. Despite differences, we're never going to be the same. We're never going to be enough of a monolith to all move in one direction in the same exact way. But we can all agree on some things and try to move forward with that, I think. And yeah, ideology has to underpin that, undergird that.
Dope. Dr. Kamau, hold up. Tierney's back first, and then we'll get to you, my brother.
Yeah, I agree with everything everyone said. And for me, my ideology that I would say motivates me is, I think at the basic level, it's just love for people, honestly. And obviously, before you love those on a distance, you love those who are in front of you. And those who are in front of us are people, African people. And if you love your people, you don't endorse anything, any system, any ideology that is going to hurt your people. And you look for whatever is going to have the most benefit for the most of your people. And I think when we move based on that love, that it's kind of like there's a scripture of perfect love cast out all misunderstandings. Like when you move based on love, you're not going to have so many of the infighting. Like, you know, you're willing to concede and look bad or you know, let someone else be higher so that so that everyone can come together. And so I think the more that we prioritize the love aspect of one another, the more that will actually be the guiding force, because I don't know any person who loves all African people who can co-sign the horrible imperialist system, and who honestly loves African people and can see other people, like what's happening in Palestine right now, going through the same thing and feel indifferent. So I think that should be at a basic level, you know, love of self, love of people, love of your people who are closest to you. That should be the biggest motivating factor.
You know, Che Guevara said revolution is an act of love. And I think that that's one of the things that I don't think a lot of people get. I think that we focus so much on hating the white man and hating imperialism and hating Negroes and hating who don't believe like we believe, that we miss the mark when it comes to the whole act and art of revolution. So I'm glad that you came from that particular angle. I mean, both of you, because of the fact that, I mean, ultimately, why are we doing what we're doing if it's not an act of love? You know, Brother Kamau.
Brother Kalonji. I always feel like I've been driven by the idea of revolutionary nationalism as a specific ideological practice. In fact, I think my ideology in a lot of ways has been the same to me as a spiritual practice, right? In terms of what guides me, what makes me think about how the world should operate and my place in the world. And so when I say revolutionary nationalism, what I mean by that is one, the thing that everybody has mentioned here so far is a socialist practice, an economic practice, a well-being of everybody on the planet that comes first and foremost before we talk about anybody profiteering or exploiting and being able to live in a certain way compared to what the rest of the planet lives, right? So for me, the revolutionary aspect of it is an overturning of a capitalist system that's meant to degrade us, to keep us down, to keep us as workers, to keep us as free labor, to keep us as cheap labor. And then our role is to destroy that. And then the nationalism for me is I consider myself a nationalist, a Pan-Africanist, and an internationalist. I don't think there's any contradictions for me in all of that. But for me, the core is that I think we as a people, no one else can free us but us. No one else can tell us what liberation means but us. We have to figure that out for ourselves. And when we talk about even going back to or engaging in our sort of traditional cultural aspects that were attempted to be taken away from us, and people say, oh, everything in Africa wasn't perfect, or wherever place we were living, is like, well, no, that's not the point. The point is not about perfection. The point, it was ours, right? And with ours, we within time will decide what we continue on with that tradition and what we discard, right? We will have those internal battles and discussions, and some of that may be taken from outside influences and so forth. But ultimately, it is what we think is better for our people, our living standards, our way of interacting with each other. Is not something that can be imposed from the outside. So it's not like I don't believe in sort of a general human rights theme of what all human beings should have. But I think within that context of like a universal belief of human rights, I do think there is some relativism that's important to understand, that it's going to take folks who are living that culture to fight and make changes within that culture, and that everybody who's practicing that culture may not be practicing it for the best reasons or the best solutions. But it's up to that group to try to figure out what are the best ways to move forward, so that those practices, which may be arcane to us in some ways, don't get to continue in perpetuity, that we find ways to end them to make sure that we come to a better understanding of what we need globally.
Agreed.
No doubt, no doubt. So you guys have some marvelous answers. Got me feeling rather African revolutionary tonight. One of the questions, another question I wanted to ask is, we often talk about what's wrong. You know what I mean? We talk about, who our enemy is. I think by now, if we're not clear who our enemy is, then I think that we'll be forever lost. One of the questions I wanted to pose was, here we are in 2021, right? And we're still arguing the same arguments. We still have the infighting. We're still talking about we need a revolution. So I wanted to ask you all, what are not necessarily solutions, but what are some things that can get us on the right path towards revolution? And how important is it for us to lay groundwork for revolution, or should we just keep on the path we on and just, pray it away?
I think we definitely should pray, but that's not gonna work. Prayer without works, right? As the Christian folks say. But I think one of the reasons why I'm constantly beating the modernity drum is that I really think that we are a people who is in need of healing. We are a people who we need to treat ourselves more gently than we do. Folks in the struggle are hard on each other. Sometimes they're just really rough with we're rough with each other. We don't come into a space trying to find common ground. We come into the space trying to throw our weight around, throw our ideology around, throw our egos around, and just see if we can dominate the space with how we feel and what we think should go on, instead of kind of being submitting to the collective. Like, collectivism has to be our first priority, and people need to heal to get there. Like, we really need to build trust. We don't have trust within even movements. You can go into a space like, obviously I'm always talking about prayer, meditation, and things like that. You can go into a space where people don't even feel comfortable closing their eyes in a room full of other people they're supposed to be struggling with, organizing with, mobilizing with. If you can't center yourself and find a quiet place amongst the folks because you're worried someone's going to pick your pocket or violate you in some kind of way, you're not doing it. You're not going anywhere. We don't have the basic human interactional stuff down. So I think that's got to be a core. That's got to be something we talk about more. We got to talk about going to therapy, because if not, anything we're building is on a shaky foundation. That's just how I feel.
I think a big part of coming to a revolution has to be understanding just how extreme things are. And I think, unfortunately, in America, it's very difficult to have a full appreciation for the system, you know, when you're inside of your small bubble. And even among our people who are struggling, I mean, I think that there's so many things that are thrown out there to my opinion is that, like, all the social media and all the TV, the reality shows, that there's an intentional effort to, excuse me, an intentional effort to distract people. I think all the celebrity gossip there, I think that there is literally people thinking, how do we get these people to be concerned with things other than the conditions as they exist? And for our people here, I think that's going to be a struggle for us, is to get to recognize how extreme things are. And then for our people who are abroad, who do have a recognition of how extreme things are, I think that there has to be a concerted effort to point the finger at, okay, you see the conditions are extreme. I mean, when you see Africans getting in these blow up boats to go across the Mediterranean for the possibility, maybe I can get to Europe, and a lot of them drown with their children. I mean, that's an extreme circumstance. That's an extreme thing to do. And when you get them to see, if you're willing to either live through this poverty or you're willing to risk your life, that you have to identify the system that's creating your condition. And that's going to be, I think, the onus on us to clearly explain neo-colonialism, to clearly explain imperialism, to unite with our brothers and sisters who are already explaining it, because a lot of people are, but they don't have the support in their work to be able to be as effective. So I think it's going to have to come from the extreme realities resonating with us. And I think, you know, there's so many like revolutionary things happening. I don't want to say, I would say there's reactionary things happening, or not even reactionary. There's people reacting to the situation. You know, there's people reacting to police brutality. There's people reacting to, I hate my president, let's get him out of here. Not a lot of people are reacting to the colonial situation, and that's intentional to me. I think that there's an intentional effort to make things look like this is what your enemy is, and not have you recognize who's really in charge.
Word.
So quickly on that, I would like, obviously we were talking partly about a propaganda system, right? A propaganda system that both distracts us from what we should be doing, because it's laying out all these other things that they want us to be interested in, and what they want us to grab onto, and what they want us to care about, and even what they don't want us to care about, right? And what they don't want us to look like or feel attached to. So there's that propaganda system that, in essence, again, needs that counter. Whether we want to, propaganda now has a negative connotation, but at one point it just meant information, right? So there's that counter information that we need to put out there that talks about what it is that we can do that's better than what you got now. So for me, a part of the work of organizing and talking about revolution is sometimes about creating models, right? Even if they're small models, but there's models of resistance. So what is it that we can do that can lead folks to see that there are alternatives to how we're living our lives that are out there, that are both challenging, again, for me, challenging the state, but also saying that this is what a future can behold, right? And obviously those things are hard to do with the lack thereof of resources a lot of our organizational apparatuses have, which gets us to that other part of the question I think Kalonji was asking around the sort of structure of organizing or resisting, right? And again, we've talked about this on Renegade Culture and there's a couple other things. Currently, the structure is nonprofitism, right? Nonprofit institutions are where people go to express their resistance to the state, which on its face is obviously ridiculous because it's the state itself that's funding these nonprofits through these corporate developments, through these corporations, through these billionaires who are actually giving us these resources to do this. And so no one is going to fund their own dissolution, right? So we have to understand that these things are done in a way to let us believe that we're making some progress, but to also stop us from really going all the way and resisting to a point of having actual revolution or radical change.
Right. Yeah. Now that's you know, I'm sitting here and I'm taking in all that's being said because of the fact that what we're talking about, you know, is almost like a manual. You know what I mean? And I think that one of the things that I'm seeing new organizers, and I see some organizers who are quote unquote old, you know what I'm saying, or seasoned. And it's crazy because of the fact that nowadays, you know, it makes you wonder if the dog is wagging the tail or the tail's wagging the dog. You know what I mean? You have some quote unquote elders that's trying to stay relevant. So they hop on with whatever BS comes up that's new because of the fact that it's like, look, well, I got to make sure my name is still out here. You know what I mean? So I'm going to take on the role as being chief elder, such and such, who really, I mean, and a lot of these quote unquote elders, one of the things, shout out to one of our OGs, Bilal Sunni Ali. I remember him saying that, matter of fact, I think it was his wife, Fulani Sunni Ali, who's an ancestor. She said that every old motherfucker ain't an elder. Some of them are just old motherfuckers. And I'm saying that now because of the fact that coming from the generation under the 60s, you know what I mean? Generation X, you know, being between the so-called youth and the elders right now, I'm seeing a lot of folks who are in our era who are being recognized as OGs. And we've been knowing them for years and we know that they're on bullshit. You know what I mean? Straight like that. But of course, with the youth, it's like whatever sounds good, whatever sounds tough, you know what I mean? That's the business. I wanted to pose a question right now. Do you all think that the new mode of organizing is a detriment or is it a plus? You know, based on the styles, because of the fact that we see for the first time for me, for example, this past summer was the first time in Atlanta in particular that I actually saw white folks leading our marches, leading our movement. You know what I mean? It was quite baffling because that never happened in the past. So I wanted to know from you all, what are your thoughts on the current mode of organizing? And I'm not going to say necessarily the youth, but I'm just saying just this particular era. I mean, is it advantageous? Do we need work? Is it a setback? What's your thoughts?
I think this era is concerning to me. I know it's my era, which is crazy, but I think a big problem that I've felt for a while is that we were allowing other people to tell us what we should be prioritizing. And we were allowing other people to be the determination of when we're going to come together when we care about racism, because racism is not something that happens every time an African is killed by the police. Racism is happening this very second. We're feeling it, you know, in some type of way. And allowing the oppressor's actions to determine how we're going to react to the racism, I've always had a problem with that. And I've always felt like it's not sustainable also to constantly allow yourself to come out and protest something that is not the root and is instead a symptom. I look at police brutality as something obviously serious, but I don't think that that's the thing that we should honestly be prioritizing personally. I believe that police brutality is always going to be a symptom of the capitalist system. And I believe that because everywhere where I see African people in a capitalist system, it's the same results repeated over and over. We're seeing it in Brazil, we're seeing it in Colombia, like everywhere. So I'm not of the impression that that if there's a way to solve this problem, and I think the system can always turn out more bodies and have us, you know, focus on that. Meanwhile, when's the last time, and I don't know when the last time I seen a huge protest over the educational system that's ill-funded for our people. I don't know the last time, even something like the prison industrial complex that's just outwardly like, this is clearly slavery. I don't know, like, I've never seen like our people have the same care about these systemic issues that are always constant with us. And I think that that's really our problem. And those are things obviously that are difficult to solve. And we know police brutality is also difficult to solve, but it can make you feel like you're solving it because you're dealing with an individual case instead of dealing with something that there's no such thing as justice in the prison industrial complex unless you destroy the prison industrial complex. And so I think we kind of, we allow the media to sell us things that are more sensational, and that becomes the driving force to where we want to be when we want to be active. I want to be active now and not with the ongoing situation that's constantly happening. So that's my opinion overall, as far as when I look at things like you talk. I mean, I'm assuming Brother Kalonji talking about the George Floyd protest. That was my sentiment about that. That's my sentiment about where we are as far as what we see. But I also want to keep in mind that a lot of the true organizers we just don't see. And that's to me another symptom of the fact that if it's not popular, if it's not something the media is willing to recognize, you're just not going to see it.
No doubt. That's why we have Black Power Media. What you got to say, Doctor?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree. I think there's this vulgar, rugged individualism, and it's like a disease that. So it's not just I think a point that was made earlier about us like identifying Trump and like saying he's the problem, like the one dude, as opposed to looking at it systemically. It's almost like that same poison of like individualism is also affecting how we choose to struggle and things we struggle about. We're struggling about the death of one guy, like one person at a time, right? As opposed to looking at this as a systemic issue and trying to attack it as a broader issue. There are some people who were in tears over the George Floyd verdict because they put all of their thoughts, prayers, and energy into like the death of this one person, as opposed to saying like, how do we dismantle this so we don't keep ending up here? Right. And even dismantle is kind of a weak word to me. I'm like, this thing needs to be ripped apart, burned, scorched so it never returns ever. You know what I mean? Like wiped and ripped apart. Anyway, but I think that's one of the main issues, the individualistic approach to problems and solutions and identifying problems. I think also there's a talking out, like the same thing for the culture as opposed to in the culture. Like we're talking to them, and I think our oppressors want to keep us talking to them because they'll always know what we're up to, and they'll always have the next thing to like counteract it. And I think our ancestors, and this is why history is so important, the ancestors who were effective were the ancestors who were quiet. I will say this the day I die. I respect the activists that nobody knows, but they get that work done because nobody's distracting them. Nobody has told them to pause the work and come talk to me and tell me what you up to. They're not putting it on blast, in these like major media platforms to try to let everybody know and announce what they're doing so they can get credit for it. They are just doing and the ancestors who were successful went to each other and spoke to each other. They went and worked in communities and got some things done. And I just think that we need to just be quiet. Like we need to just learn the power in clandestine like activity because we're just constantly telling on ourselves. I think this is a point that Jared Ball makes often. We're just constantly telling our oppressors what we're up to, and we're so busy trying to like explain to them as opposed to getting clarity internally. So that's something I would say is an issue. And it creates an easy funnel into the nonprofit world, the corporate world, like all these fashion designers are now like sponsoring activists, just book deals left and right. You know what I mean? People on the cover of Vogue who are activists. I think that it's so easy to co-opt once they constantly keep us speaking to them.
Both of you have alluded to this. Kalonji usually just says it directly. So I want to have a theoretical discussion. I want to frame it this way around the use of violence, right? The use of revolutionary violence. Is that a tactic, theoretically speaking, that we should have at our disposal in thinking about a revolution? Or do we subscribe to the ideas that a I think at one point in history, Palestine is so in the news these days. During the Intifadas, there were folks who, Palestinians, who rejected the Intifada and instead wanted to use what they considered to be a social justice format in terms of which way forward for the Palestinian struggle, and that they should use more tactics that were sort of learned from a civil rightsy struggle, as opposed to the struggle of what I'll call resistance. So again, I want to have that theoretical discussion around the use of violence, to defend oneself and actually to win revolutionary struggle. Who wants to jump in and go first? Theoretically. Yeah. Theoretically.
Remember, he's an attorney, so theoretically.
Theoretically, violence should be on the table. Theoretically and historically, we don't have successful revolutions against this particular set of enemies without it. Also, I think, I'm not a Black psychologist, but it stands to reason that if you are constantly being assaulted and violated through physical violence, psychic violence, environmental violence, economic violence, and you are trained to respond peacefully, there's a devaluing of your own self. Like, you're not responding with the same energy, like to a violation, and it's as if you're kind of constantly being reminded or reminding yourself that you don't deserve real justice, you don't deserve the retribution, that you just to some degree deserve whatever that gap is between the violation and your response. That's what you deserve. Wow. The gap in, you know what I mean, the gap in intensity. So I hope I'm being clear, but I'm saying that reinforces our inferiority. That reinforces the lack of value that our lives have. It means, this is why we have to always be saying our lives have value, that they matter, because I think there's still a deep lack of belief that they really do. And I think that's because our responses have been so mild to extreme. I think Tierney made an important point about the urgency and extremity of the violence that is enacted on us, our people. The death, the bodies breaking, the homes and communities being literally physically destroyed, and we respond with marching and talking. Like that means a people who does that is a people who doesn't value itself, I think, honestly. So violence has to be on the table, because violence is simply like the ocean we're swimming in.
I completely agree. And to me, like, we should automatically know something is up when the system determines which Black leaders are going to get recognition during Black History Month based on whether or not they were for violence or for, and I would say violence, whether or not violence was on the table. None of them that actually had that as an option will ever be recognized by the American system. And I never understood, honestly, the controversy behind what Malcolm was saying. Like it shows just like really what they're telling us is that we're going to validate you and you have to take it, because he wasn't saying let's go out and do violence. He said any means necessary. So if peace will work, we'll have peace. We'll work with you. If peaceful protest, if you will listen to us, if civil disobedience will work, we'll do civil disobedience. And if it doesn't work, meaning you're still going to hold out and still say, no, we're going to continue with this white supremacist system, then, okay, well, I guess we have to use violence. I don't feel like that's controversial, but the system does, because we're supposed to be enslaved. We're not supposed to have options. And I feel like it's very interesting. So I never understood, like as a Christian, you know, I never understood how some of our civil rights leaders, they have that position of, you know, I don't believe in, I believe in nonviolence. I don't believe in self-defense. And therefore my people shouldn't believe in self-defense. And that's just crazy to me, because every action has a reaction. If you keep pushing a people, the natural reaction is going to be that you're going to get that same energy back. It might not be in an organized fashion. It might not be in a fashion that's going to dethrone you, but you're going to have some type of explosion eventually. The idea that I'm going to not point the finger at the system that is violent as being the one who should be the only focus. I'm going to tell my people, yeah, it's violent, but you know, don't be violent either. That doesn't make any logical sense. So I think it's just propaganda, honestly, that we even have this idea that, you know, oh, they were peacefully protesting, it's okay. Well, what if they weren't peacefully protesting? Like, what are you saying? But does it mean that the issue they're protesting for is no longer valid? So these are things that I think are tricks that we unfortunately don't always figure out.
It's crazy. Like, your enemy could stab you and then say, okay, but you can only flick me back on my arm. That's how you can respond when I stab you. Like that. And we're just like, okay, I guess we'll just keep flicking and hoping you stop stabbing us at some point. Like that. And this is why energy matters. We're talking about energy. We're talking about intensities, energies, and degrees. And I think our African worldviews and many other indigenous worldviews is like energy to energy, response and counter response. You know, this is the action, here's the reaction or the response to the action. Energy has to match. If someone's coming for you, our worldviews and our operating systems allow us to respond in kind. And that's why I think getting back to those deeper understandings is very important. Like that, so you then those logics solve themselves. Yep.
To quote the rapper M1 from Dead Prez, revolution is not a violent act. I think that the ill thing, I think is psychological warfare. You know what I mean? When has America or any European not either initiated violence or responded with violence? There's no cases where when they bombed Pearl Harbor, they didn't say, oh man, you know, they was just upset today, and you know, perhaps, you know, we should look into some type of peaceful accord. No, they went and they bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They murdered over 300-something thousand people within a 10-day period. Men, women, children, dogs, cats, plants, whatever existed. They said they were going to decimate it. They dropped an atomic bomb. They didn't say, let's get along peacefully. We are the most ignorant people on the planet. We're so peaceful. It's like some of these folks that read so much that they're dumb. You understand what I'm saying? I know some folks that read so damn much that they are just stupid. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't know the author. They're not clear about what it is they're reading. They're just like, I'm just going to read a book because of the fact that the cover looks good and the author sound good when I saw him on Oprah. And they were on the New York Times bestseller list. So it's definitely psychological warfare when you respond by not responding. Let
me jump in and wrap up maybe with this last question, because y'all talked about Malcolm. We mentioned Malcolm, and Malcolm always talks about, you know, what the basis of revolution was, right? And Malcolm's understanding the basis of revolution was land, right? That was the reason for revolution. So you can give the same answer, but I'm curious for each of you, almost as a wrap up, what do you think is the basis and or reason for revolution?
I think it's land, but I think it's also what degree of control you have over every being of your life. And I mean psychologically, I mean socially, politically. And so I think ultimately, to me, yes, land, but more specifically, I guess, self-determination to me. Every people should have the rights. Every people should be able to determine their destinies. The idea that certain groups get to determine the destinies of everyone else, and we've just accepted it. I mean, that's the thing that pisses me off the most when I look at, I'll look at the United Nations or look at just different like Western powers, how they're discussing like, oh, well, what are we going to do about Chad? Or what are we going to do about Mali? What are we going to do about these African people? And it's like, why do you even feel that you're entitled to that decision to begin with? And you know that colonialism is something that we reject, but so you'll mask it as being concerned. And I think our people have been so bred into thinking that we need their concern, that we will ask for direction. Well, look at like what Muhammadu Buhari and in Nigeria tells the United States, come to Nigeria, come to Africa, come closer with your imperialist police, with your military, come determine our destinies. Like how could you want how do you logically not want a police force or a military force that is actually of your people? So I think it's the land, but it's the things that happen on the land, and ultimately it has to be complete control by the indigenous populations without any interference. To me, that's the only thing that we should focus on and struggle for. And I think that's what is very hard to mask or to weaken or water down from the West. And so they find other things for us to aspire to. Like they'll say, you should aspire to having free elections or something like that, and no talk about self-determination. You should aspire to end female genital mutilation, which is, something I definitely would not want. But, the point is they'll get us to aspire to different things that don't go to the heart of it, that we should control our own destinies. And that's the only thing that should be on the table.
What she said.
Man. And yeah, I'm with y'all on that. Self-determination, land, what she said. Yeah, period. Closing out, what's in the works? What can we expect from you two? We know that you've definitely been bringing the pain on the Remix Morning Show. We appreciate that. Tierney with African Esquire with a channel over there, been banging them in the head as well. But what can we expect from you two? And how can folks get at you?
I'm on summer break now, so I got hopefully more time to do more with it. I want to bring more guests on, more just dope folks to talk about the things that don't get enough airtime. Give us more tools from the toolkit or medicine from the medicine bag that we can use, and hopefully get some writing done.
Yeah, and we need you to do your own show as well. What's up with that?
Oh, I'll think about that. I will work on that.
Yeah. Because I know in the inbox, the chat, and all that, they're like, "Oh yeah, go! Why y'all cut her off?" Like, look, that wasn't me.
She did what she said she could do.
That's right, and she did.
Right,
and that's that.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Tierney, what about you? What can we expect from you?
I say definitely, some more of the same, continuing to organize. But I think the direction that I'm going in right now, I'm really focused on this decolonization thing. And I'm working with the organization NCBL, and we're putting out a decolonization of human rights legal clinic, where we're going to try to approach the issue of colonialism using legal remedies. And so that's really where my mind is, and making that public enemy number one, the colonial system, and having our people not just say, yeah, this happened, but this is happening, and we are owed a life where we're not subjects to people. So that's where my mind is. That's where my work is going. And so I think you guys can expect more on that end.
And for those who don't know, real quickly, National Conference of Black Lawyers for NCBL.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Just in case. Well, it's been a pleasure having both of you on, having this conversation about what makes a revolution or what is a revolution. Y'all know more than we do, so we need to follow y'all leads. You know what I mean? So I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, definitely, man. We're gonna have you all back again. Man, I think that the time went so quick and it flowed so smooth that we might have to do this once a month. You know what I mean? No, because I mean we need practical solutions, and it's like a lot of times we get on with the egos and the theories, but not too much practical shit. Everybody wants to be, I'm trying to be the next, great philosopher. I want, everybody follow me. Check out my Twitter handle. Check out my IG. You know what I mean? That sounds good, but at the end of the day, when you finish bumping your gums, we're in the same situation we was in before you started. So we appreciate you all. Stay on point, comrades, and we will see you on Tuesday on the morning show.
Renegade Culture. We're going to be right back after this break with a guest.
No doubt.
We all know, actually.
A guest who's no stranger. You're checking out Renegade Culture. We'll be right back at ya.
Booyah.
Oops.
Caught me drinking my drink, B. I was like, hey, take a little sip.
I know, man. What you over there sipping, man? Got the fresh glass. Don't worry
about that, son. It's freshly squeezed. That's all you need to know.
You ain't sharing? What type of African are you? That look like a Bloody Mary. What's poppin'?
It's my night out, son. It's my night out.
It's your night out.
I'm doing my thing.
You in the community house. What you mean it's your night out? I think that's a violation.
After this, B. Hitting club. Peaches is open. Might be going to Peaches.
You go. You gonna go to the worst spot you can go to.
But it's close to the community house, son.
Okay. Gunshots, the whole nine. You see it all. But anyway, Renegade Culture, that was a dope episode, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, they should have their own show together. They should co-host the show. We should put some ideas like, what do y'all think about that?
Yeah. No, it's good. I mean, because of the fact that one of the things I appreciate is their accolades is crazy. You know what I'm saying? The education, one's an attorney, one's a professor. You know what I mean? They're young but they're humble.
Yeah, and serious about it. They're serious about their work. You can tell, sort of like it's something that they put their heart, their minds, like you said, the research, the background, the thinking forward around what are the solutions that will work for us now. So it's always an honor and a pleasure to meet with folks who, and to talk with folks who know that revolution is not something that happens within the confines of what the state tells you have to practice in order to get some justice or some freedom. But instead, it's something that you got to think outside the box, and you don't let anybody set your directions for you that's not on your side, right? And I think that I always appreciate, relatively speaking, younger revolutionary folks who do that kind of work and who are involved in that kind of practice.
Man, it's absolutely refreshing because of the fact that, I mean, shit, you and I, we were out at some of the protests this past summer, feeling like we had to dust off fatigues and taking it back to the 80s and 90s and whatnot, hanging out there and seeing how, folks was upset and all that, and talking tough and seeing so many of the folks who reminded us of ourselves. That's why it's funny, because of the fact that it's like, now I feel like the old heads back in the day, the OGs that was laughing at us and looking at us like we didn't know what we was talking about, and we swore full God that we was Malcolm, you. You know what I'm saying?
Don't hold us back. Don't be getting our way.
Like why y'all hating? Why y'all hating?
Trying to do this work, son.
Yeah. Now it came back to us. You know what I mean? But it's refreshing, definitely, to see two younger comrades who happen to be sisters. I'm saying comrades first because of the fact that we get confused with the whole, are you a man or you're a woman or all that type stuff. But clearly, it's good to see that they're sharp. We have another guest coming up who we probably don't consider a guest. First of all, it feels weird not being in the studio today.
I know. There's always that little bit of disconnect when we're not like sitting there chopping it up and we got all the folks up in there.
One cracking a bunch of jokes and nothing tonight.
But
I think we need to bring somebody. I think the next guest need to be from the studio. What you think? We need to bring in somebody from the studio. I think I'm gonna reach in there and reach out for the minister.
Who you gonna
know
grab?
what I'm saying? Huh?
The minister is gonna be here.
I'm gonna see if Minister Server can tap in. Let me see. Oh, transmitting from where?
Live from the planet Earth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you not be from the planet Earth with that sound. You better check that sound, son.
I know you.
I didn't know whether these headphones were. You try to take it out. Hold on.
Yeah, take them headphones out.
Don't start that, brother.
How about
you should have fixed all that before you got on. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Yo, man, listen. I'm used to being on the other side of shit. You know what I mean? So yeah.
What's
Transmitting live from the planet Earth. I am Minister Server. What's up, good brother?
What's happening, man?
Man, listen, I was just watching the show coming in, man, and yo, both of them sisters are on point, beautiful, and it's wonderful, as you all said. Kamau just mentioned the seriousness of the work that they're doing, man. Black Power Media.
Right. No doubt.
Speaking of seriousness, you got something coming up soon. An event, a happening. Can you tell us about what that event is?
Well, we have something coming up. It is a community event that you all are involved with, as far as I know. Kalonji, he would just leave me out there like you got something going on and shit. Yeah, what's up with that?
Let's go to the opening, son. Let's go to the opening. It's an interviewer giving you an opening to talk about the upcoming project.
Hey, listen, man. One thing I learned about Kamau, when he's uncertain of what might go down, he say, "You have something." Then when it blows up, he's like,
down, bro.
"I was there.
We did a great job."
I was with you there all along.
That's Jared Ball's brother.
It was my idea.
No, but this coming Sunday actually starts Hip Hop Appreciation Week. It goes from Sunday, May 16th to May 23rd. And we are jumping it off this coming Sunday at the Unity Cafe from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. We have 2 international hip hop artists, John Cy Robinson, who's been on Renegade Culture before, and Stacey Epps, who will be on this soon. Lioness, who was the sister that was on a couple of weeks ago. This will be her first live performance. That's my niece, you know what I'm saying, will be performing, as well as another young man. And I see y'all back there laughing about that, but one of the things that I love to do is to bring the old to the new. You know, I'm in my hip-hop grandpa phase. You know what I mean? So my thing is always making sure that we connect the connections. For those of us that have been around, we know how important it is to get the backing of the elders and whatnot. So with this event, in all seriousness, you know, it's a family event. It's from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. That way we don't disturb other people doing Sunday mornings or whatever. And they still have their Sunday evenings to do whatever they do. And the City of Atlanta Council is doing a proclamation to recognize Hip Hop Appreciation Week. It's also the 20-year anniversary of the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace, which is the document you see behind me. You know, just to add some form of structure outside of whatever the entertainment industry is doing with hip hop. You know what I'm saying? We have to make sure that, you know, as you all were talking about, there are many ways that we have to reclaim ourselves, as it were. You know what I'm saying? And hip hop is most certainly one of those things that we can see the corporate influence and how they changed it away from what the intention was, which was to help us to sidestep the system. You know what I'm saying? We were the obstacle that was causing havoc. You know, so for even rap music to be the #1 genre of music in the world right now, I mean, while that may look good on one end, it's not all that great for hip hop because we still don't control it. So that's a whole nother conversation. So hip hop. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say one of the things that you mentioned. Sorry about cutting you off. You mentioned the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace. Can you give us some for folks who are not familiar with the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace? Give us some background on that.
Yeah. Well, big up to Blast Massacre, one of the temple of hip hop, Rivers International, UNESCO, Universal Zulu Nation, Riverside Church, Chuck D, Ernie Panicoli, Pop Master Fable, Harry Allen, Grandmaster Flash. These were the pioneers that on May 16th, 2001, went to the United Nations to establish hip hop as an international culture with peace and prosperity. You know, to begin to take ourselves a bit more serious, again, beyond just rap music. You know, as we've been saying for a while, rap is something you do, hip hop is something you live. So while these principles are not any kind of rules or laws or mandates, if you say rap is something you do, hip hop is something you live, then we want to have principles by which we're aspiring to live by. So these 18 principles are ways to govern ourselves in a general way, but also more importantly, to give our young people, you know, a different, at the very least, a different paradigm on what hip hop is. Because if not, then the entertainment industry gets to determine what hip hop is for them, and we kind of see already the results of that. So, you know, and this is the 20-year anniversary. I've been able to introduce this document internationally. This is about a decade now that I've been teaching it at the International Hip Hop Festival, because again, this document is not specific to any individuals or any organizations. It's principles that I tell people within those 18 principles, something that you're already passionate about is already in that document. So again, we're looking for different tools and strategies to pass on to our young people so hip hop culture can continue to be what it was for, which is to make you a better you. You know, at the end of the day, before we got involved with the industry, which was only about 25 years as far as, you know, the industry in the 90s when they really kind of took over. Before then, it was just our shit. You know what I'm saying? It was black people expressing themselves with ancient African art forms. They nothing new that we're doing. We know that. But, you know, now as we get older, we have a responsibility for those of us that can see the connection from our ancient African selves to use it right now. And as I said, more importantly, be able to pass something on to our children. Because according to the United Nations, hip hop is the fastest growing culture in the world because it can still sidestep any system and allow people to express themselves in an authentic, genuine way. And on the continent of Africa, because it's the youngest continent, hip hop is on fire. So we owe it to ourselves as black people in America to understand hip hop in a global sense, more than just, you know, whatever city you rep in or whatever.
We for those of you who are unaware, Minister Server is holds about 18 titles. You know what I'm saying? He is you can catch him on Renegade Culture Weekly. He's an associate producer, and he also he does hip hop stories, which we'll be bringing back on the next episode.
What's up with the hip hop stories?
Hey man, we bringing it back this week. What you talking about? We just
So give it one more time. When, where, why?
Yes.
The event is Sunday, May 16th, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Unity Coffee and Cafe, which is 640 Evans Street in Atlanta, Georgia. You can get on social media. Check me out on Minister Server on Instagram, on Facebook. You'll see the post up there. Definitely, you know, as I said, you know, for those of us that are parents, whether you are still into hip hop or not, we have a responsibility to, at the very least, counter program what we know our open enemy is trying to do to our youth. Again, it's not about what rappers you like or who you don't like. Again, we use hip hop as life strategy for self-identification, self-empowerment, self-improvement, which leads to positive social change. So come out this Sunday and experience real hip hop in real life. And yeah, man, we're gonna get it in for the whole year, no doubt.
No doubt. And hopefully there'll be some live broadcasts from the joint or whatever that we can push on Black Power Media. Definitely.
Yeah, we are gonna broadcast live. We also do Facebook Live there from Sunday as well, man, so people can kind of see it. As I said, it goes the whole week. The city of Atlanta is doing a proclamation. So again, you know, even that, you know, some people, you know, are kind of surprised that they're doing a proclamation from the city of Atlanta. But for those that have been, know that we've been doing that for about a decade. Every mayor that's been in, we make sure that we're doing it just for history. That may not mean anything now, but 100 years from now, our grandchildren our great grandchildren can be able to pull out the work that we've done to at least attempt to make the world better for them. And I believe as parents, as grandparents, all of us want the same thing. How do we do our part to make the world better for the next generation? Hip hop is the tools and strategies that we use.
No doubt. Our great grandchildren would be like, look at what they was doing before they overthrew the government. No doubt.
Exactly.
We like to think my main man, Minister Server in the building. Catch him every Friday at 9 p.m. on Renegade Culture. You can catch those hip hop stories. You know what I'm saying? Definitely part of the team, associate producer, and stress us out every week. You know what I mean? We're glad to see you here today. And you know, we'll see you all Sunday for those of you who would be in the spot in Atlanta.
That's right. Great show.
Yeah.
No
Peace,
doubt.
y'all. Renegade culture.
We out of here.
Peace,
Black out.
peace.
Renegade
Salute.
culture. Yes. Salute.